Hey guys, it's Amy here, and today I bring you my top 10 books of 2015. So 2015 has come and gone in a flash. I can't believe it has gone so quickly. I read 100 books in 2015, so here are 10 of those 100 that I thought were fantastic. The first one I have to show you is actually my most recent favourite from this year, and it is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. I mentioned this one in my December wrap-up, so I won't go too much into the story, but I just thought this book was so phenomenally written. In fact, I'm going to reread it again soon. I've bought another Shirley Jackson book that I want to read as well. I don't know how to articulate how much I enjoyed this book. I thought it was so good. You know when you find a book and you feel like it's just connected to you somehow, like in your brain, like it's literally like exactly how your brain is or something. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it to you guys. I just wish that you would go and read it and maybe tell me your experience with this book and whether it's kind of the same as mine. The writing, the plot, the characters, everything fitted together so perfectly, and I found it to be such a great story. I would highly recommend to anyone who enjoys psychology or anything like that. This is one for you. I forgot to mention at the beginning of this video, these books aren't in any kind of order because that would be way too hard to decide in any kind of order, so they're just random. The next book I have here is Reasons to Stay Alive by Matt Haig. I read this book on a train journey to London and I thought it was brilliant. It's a non-fiction book following the life of Matt Haig. He is talking about his struggle with anxiety and depression, two things of which I have suffered with myself and I found to be incredibly interesting to read about. Not only do I think this book would be great for anyone who also suffers with depression or anxiety or any kind of mental illness, I also think it would be great for people who don't suffer with any of those kind of things and would just like to know more about it and to see it from the perspective of someone who does have those things. There are lots of facts and figures in this book and some myths that are kind of dispelled, which I found to be really interesting, and I do honestly think that a lot of people should read these kind of books because a lot of people have very kind of skewed ideas of what mental health is and depression and anxiety, and just I think it would be a great read for anyone, to be honest. I also read Matt Haig's fictional book of The Humans this year and I really enjoyed that as well, but this one definitely took the top spot for me. Next we have a classic and it is I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. I read this one earlier in the year on the recommendation of Sana, I think, at Books and Quills. In 2014 I read and really enjoyed Pride and Prejudice and I wanted something with a similar feel, and this just ticked all those boxes. It follows the story of a girl named Cassandra and her family who live in a dilapidated castle type building in the middle of the countryside. Cassandra's life seems pretty mundane until the kind of rightful owners of the castle in which they live come over from America, and they're these two strapping young men, and her sister quite enjoy their company, and it's just their lives basically. I like reading books like this. I think they're really enjoyable. It's one of those books that I kept thinking about after I read it and I just really enjoyed it. I liked the characters, I thought the storyline was really good, and since then I've definitely wanted to pick up some more Dodie Smith books, so if you have any recommendations for what I should read next, please let me know down below. Next we have a YA book and it is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. This is a proof copy that I was sent. I read this book whilst I was on holiday in Spain and I really enjoyed it. I don't know whether it was just the setting of being in Spain and being really chilled and just happy with everything and being nice and warm, but this book was really great. It follows the story of a young girl and a young guy who are kind of born onto opposing sides of the society in which they live in. But you soon learn that both of them are actually not very happy with the life that they are living. They're not happy with the way that things are run and they want to change that. The world was fantastic. It was really fast paced. I really enjoyed the way it was written and I'm really glad that there's now going to be another one in this series. Originally it was just going to be a standalone, and come the end I was just like, no, how can it be a standalone? There needs to be more, but there is going to be another one, hopefully this year. So definitely if you like fantasy and adventure with a little sprinkling of romance, I'm not big on romance myself, but I thought it was really well done in this. Sabaa Tahir definitely goes places with this book. She definitely pushes the boundaries, like she doesn't really shy away from the kind of graphic and kind of darker sides of the novel, and I found that to be really good. This is definitely the best YA book that I've read in 2015. The next book I have to show you is Attachments by Rowell. This is one of Rowell's adult novels. I have read some of her YA stuff and found it to be okay. I didn't overly enjoy it though. I didn't think it was amazing. This, however, I found to be really, really enjoyable. I don't know whether it's just because I connected more with the characters because they were close up to my age, but I thought this book was really great and I laughed like all the way through. The book is set in the 90s, back when the internet was kind of new and email within workplace was a new thing. The main character is a man whose job it is to monitor the emails that are going within kind of the office that he works in. Personal emails get flagged to this guy and he's meant to send a warning to these people to say, you know, you shouldn't be using your work email to send personal emails. This guy starts noticing that a lot of emails are being flagged up from these two women who are having big conversations with each other about their life and love and all these different things. Instead of sending them a warning and asking them to stop using their email for personal use, he actually just carries on reading and doesn't send them any kind of warning, and just every night he goes and reads through all of the emails that they've been sending to each other in the day. When I describe it like that, it sounds like he's a massive creep, but actually in the context of the book, it's not in a creepy way, which just, I don't know how it can't sound like it is in a creepy way. It does sound creepy. It does get to a point in the book where he kind of realises that it's creepy, and there are parts of the story with the two women where he's connected, and it's just so good, and it was just really enjoyable. It was just a really light, fluffy read, a fun one, a quick one, and I laughed so much. It was full of so many good jokes. I think it's just my kind of humour, and I thought it was great. So I definitely recommend, if you haven't got along with like Fangirl and Eleanor and Potterk and you think, oh, Rainbow Rowell, not my kind of thing, give this one a go, because her adult stuff is really good and I really like it. So the next book I have is Everything is Illuminated by Jonathan Safran Foer. I read this book really early on in 2015 and it soon became one of my favourites. It follows the story of an American Jewish man who goes over to Ukraine to discover more about his family and their past. To be honest, the plot of this book wasn't even what I enjoyed the most about it. It was the characters, the way it was written. You primarily read through the eyes of this American Jewish man, but you also read through the eyes of his translator in Ukraine, and the translator is just hilarious. Like, I was laughing so much in this book. I would highly recommend to anyone who wants a good laugh but also likes to have that kind of complexity of story in there as well, because this book went places. It was very, very chaotic, but also came together at the end. I've seen a lot of negative reviews of this book because a lot of people didn't like the kind of chaos and the kind of disorganizedness of the story before it all kind of came together, I guess, and I really liked that. I thought it was a really good kind of writing style that I really connected with. Next we have another non-fiction book, and it is J.R.R. Tolkien, A Biography by Humphrey Carpenter. I made a video about this book talking through 10 interesting facts that I discovered through reading it, and I really loved it. You know, I love J.R.R. Tolkien. I find him to be an incredibly interesting person. Just the whole way he ran his life and his writing and everything was just on point. I like it. So you know I love J.R.R. Tolkien, and I'm obviously a little bit biased when it comes to reading a book about him because it's obviously going to interest me, but I think a lot of people would find this book to be very interesting as well, because Humphrey Carpenter does an amazing job at writing. It's such a compelling read. Like, I didn't find myself getting bored at any point, which often I do in biography. If you don't want to go and read the whole book, I will leave my video link down below because I pretty much pick out all the really interesting things from the book and speak about them in that video, so I'll leave that link down below. On to the last three books, and the next one I have to show you is The Shock of the Fall by Nathan Filer. This follows the story of a young boy who we watch grow up and we slowly see his descent into schizophrenia. But I have read a lot of books through the perspective of people with mental illness, but I've never read one before from the perspective of someone who has schizophrenia. I thought it was a really interesting way to write the story, and I learned a lot about the illness itself. At the beginning of the story you learn that the protagonist is deeply affected by something that happened to him and his brother when he was younger. His brother ended up dying, and you don't know whether, pretty much through the whole story, whether he is to blame for his brother's death or whether he is just blaming himself because he was a child and he felt guilty. This book was incredibly engaging, and Nathan Filer is actually a psychologist of some sort, and so he obviously had a lot of kind of background and knowledge on the subject before writing the book. I'd highly recommend this to anyone, especially if you have any interest in mental health or schizophrenia specifically. It's a really great read. The ultimate book I have to show you is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I have read 3 of the Bronte sisters books this year, The Tenant of Winterfell Hall and Wuthering Heights being the other 2. This one is by far my favourite of the 3. It basically follows the story of a young girl named Jane, and it's her whole life basically. You just follow her through and you see all the ups and downs and the crazy things that happen to her and all the good things and all the bad things. Can't really explain it better than that, to be honest. Jane Eyre was just a fantastic character, so full of sass and gumption. She was just really, really great and really fun to read through. If you haven't read anything from the Bronte sisters, I would highly recommend that you pick up this one first. Finally, onto the last book I have here is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This book was so good. It is a pre/post-apocalyptic novel set in America. We follow a theatre group 20 years after the kind of breakdown of society, and they are performing Shakespeare to various little colonies as they go along their way. You see lots of different characters kind of pre-apocalypse and post-apocalypse, so it's really interesting to see kind of how it all happens and where people are and how they all kind of interlink by the end. Like, it's such a brilliantly written novel. Everything is so cleverly done, and you kind of don't see, like, up until the end, like, how is this all going to come together? Like, I didn't see it anyway. It was a surprise to me. So yes, I would recommend this one. If you want a slightly different apocalyptic novel, then maybe try this one. So there we are. That's my top 10 books of 2015. Let me know down below what your favourite books of the year are, or if you've read any of those and what you thought of them. As always, I will leave links to Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, everything I've mentioned today down below. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I will see you soon. Bye! Women who can bear children are kind of sold to families to become their kind of breeding machines.